Hey guys, I hope that y'all are doing well and trying to stay calm with everything that's going on. I know it can be a little scary, but we're going to get through everything together and we'll be back in the classroom before you know it. I miss each and every one of you guys. I can't wait for us to get back to where we're on a regular schedule and I can see y'all smiling faces. However, I'm not sure how long we're going to be out. Hopefully we'll go back at the end of the month, but I didn't want us to get behind on our book. So I wanted to post some videos reading. I would, of course, much rather be reading it to you guys in the classroom, but I wanted to pick up where we left off and continue. So where we left off, Colton, who's posing as his brother Danny, of course, has gone into the Navy, and he is actually, he was picked to be the coxswain on the boat, and they were having a race, and his boat kind of left everybody behind. So once they got back, Chief was not very happy with them, if you recall, because said that you do not leave a man behind. So here's what happened once they returned. Chief didn't make us do push-ups. He made us carry all the whaleboats and oars back up to the boathouse and then clean and secure all the equipment while the rest of the company got to sit around a couple of fire pits and thaw themselves out and laugh at us. Then Chief ordered our crew to march over to the mess hall and peel potatoes. I apologized to the other guys, but they all said I shouldn't worry about it. It ain't your fault, Spinelli said as I scurried to keep up with the bigger guys. Sometimes there just ain't no rules to follow, he continued, except the ones in the Chief's head that he decided not to share with the rest of us. And that was how it went for the next 5 weeks at boot camp. More middle-of-the-night orders to move it, and not knowing where we were supposed to be moving it to until we got there. More drilling on the grinder, more seamanship classes, more calisthenics, more marksmanship training and heavy weapons training, more swimming and life-saving and firefighting drills with protective suits and high-pressure water guns. And more hanging out with Straub and Woody and Spinelli, sitting together at mess hall, trying to get assignments together. We kept an eye out for one another and made sure we were nearby to help each other out of any jams. Sometimes, though, we all managed to get in trouble together. There was a mock ship inside an enormous warehouse they used to teach the guys which way was forward and which way was aft, what was starboard and what was port, the difference between forecastle and a pilot house and a flying bridge and all the other parts of a ship. We got there early for class, so the other guys and I started goofing around, pretending we were playing war on this pretend ship, making explosion noises and machine gun sounds, and just generally acting like little kids. But then the instructor showed up. At first, he just glared at us. Then he told us we were being idiots. And did we have any idea what could actually happen to us if we weren't vigilant when we were out on patrol? He rolled up his sleeve and showed us his arm, or what was left of his arm. It looked like red raw hamburger meat. We could almost see the tendons underneath the thin flesh covering his elbow. He was missing 3 fingers. That's what a 3rd-degree burn looks like, he said, after it's healed, and after skin grafts and 4 surgeries. We all got really quiet. That's from not being vigilant, he said, his voice getting louder. It's from thinking this is all a big game, and then all of a sudden there's an explosion and an oil fire on your destroyer. So that's when you find out it's not a game. Not to you, and especially not to your best friend, whose whole body and face looks like this arm. He rolled his sleeve back down, and we stopped horsing around. They gave us aptitude tests to see which jobs we were best suited for in the Navy, and even though Chief had already promised me assignment to the subchaser, I had to take the test like everybody else because they needed to know what I would actually be doing on the subchaser. Most subchasers were this new class of smaller ships called patrol crafts. They used underwater explosives like depth charges to damage or destroy U-boats, if they could catch them, which so far they hadn't had much luck doing. Patrol craft sounded like something you'd see tourists on for sightseeing around the Outer Banks in the summers. Before the war, anyway. Straub said he wanted to shoot big guns, and he didn't care what kind of boat he did it on. Spinelli said he'd take a desk job, which kind of surprised me since he was always talking about how tough everybody from Jersey was. Woody said maybe he'd like to work on engines. The Navy took down the information but didn't make any promises. On Sunday, Chief made us all go to church, which was nice because it was the one time during the whole week when we just got to sit and do nothing. About the only rule Chief had for us in church was that we had to stay awake, which wasn't a problem for me with all the praying I was doing. But it was hard for a lot of the guys because of how tired we were and how hot it got in there with so many of us crammed together in the pews. Anybody Chief saw nodding off, he made swab the barracks deck in the afternoon instead of playing football on the grinder or seeing visitors at the reception building. I prayed for Danny to get better and come out of his coma and not have anything too terrible wrong with him. I prayed for Mama to not be worried about me. I prayed for Dad, who I still missed even though he passed away 4 years ago. That was usually when I got homesick, when I was praying for all of them and thinking so much about home and remembering that just a few weeks before I was like anybody else who was 12, studying the Revolutionary War, doing sums, diagramming sentences, and playing ball. Now that seems so far away and long ago that it was like it had all happened to a different person. After church was visiting hours, and guys who had family close by enough, got to see their moms and dads and brothers and sisters and aunts and uncles and cousins hauling in baskets and buckets and coolers full of food that ended up getting shared with the rest of us afterward. But while the visitors were there, those of us without any family just made do the best we could since everybody felt kind of lonely during that time. We played checkers a lot and cards. Spinelli tried to teach us chess, but Woody couldn't follow it to save his life, and Straub thought it was stupid that the queen had all the power, but the king couldn't do much of anything except move one space at a time until he got killed. I don't see why he can't move however he wants and as far as he wants and jump over anybody he wants, Straub said. I mean, he's the king, all right? Spinelli finally just gave up. When we got tired of games, we caught up on our newspaper reading, which was something I'd never done much of in my whole life, but I thought it would make me look older if I took it up now. But the news just made me so mad. How long it was taking the United States, us, to send troops over to Europe to actually fight the Germans instead of just sending supplies to Great Britain and the USSR. I mean, that was important too, but when were we going to go to real war with the Nazis? And those poor merchant marines running supplies across the Atlantic were getting sunk by the hundreds by U-boats and Nazi warships and Luftwaffe planes. Not to mention the eastern seaboard of the U.S., where more and more cargo ships and passenger ships were being targeted by U-boats, disrupting supply lines back here at home too. I'd read about all of that, and a few times, without realizing what I was doing, I'd torn the newspaper in half and then ripped it into smaller pieces until Straub stopped me. "Easy, little buddy," he said. "There's others who also want to read that." I couldn't help it, though. I was always thinking about what happened to Danny and me that day, and then about Danny in the coma. It all just made me so mad I could spit. So that was when my friends stepped in and dragged me away to play ping pong, or shoot pool, or deal up some other card game. Anything to take my mind off Danny. Not that I'd told them what happened. But somehow they just seemed to know. On payday, I cashed my check at the bank on base. I was tempted to buy some clothes since I didn't have any except my uniforms, but decided to send it all to Mama, just the way I promised I would. Except for keeping enough to buy myself a candy bar. But that was all. I wrapped the bills up good and tight and got a big envelope at the post office to mail it to Ocracoke Island, with a letter to Mama, also tucked inside. Dear Mama, I've been working like I told you, but not in Morehead City. I can't tell you where, but I don't want you to worry. Everything is good. I've made some friends and we are always very busy, and I've been staying out of trouble. Every Sunday I go to church and I pray for you all. I wanted to tell her everything that happened since I left home. It didn't feel right to keep so much a secret from her. All my life, Mama had always known what I was up to. Living on an island, everybody knew everybody, and you couldn't get away with anything without somebody telling your parents. But I wasn't on the island anymore. So I made it a short letter and promised to write her again soon and send more money when I got my next paycheck. And I signed it, Love, Colton. We'll pick up tomorrow with chapter 8. See you then.